Welcome. Welcome, new friends, first time listeners. Welcome, everyone. We're delighted that you're here. We're here at Black Tea, powered by Give Black Alliance. Today's conversation is so special to me. For generations, I mean a long time, Black women have spoken with clarity about our democracy, about injustices, about the cost of ignoring the truth. And too often, our warnings were dismissed. Too often, our leadership questioned and our philanthropy kind of just overlooked. And our stories rewritten through someone else's lens. Today, on Black Tea, we're going to address some of this. We are delighted to have an intergenerational conversation with five Black women leaders. And we're going to talk about the reality that we're in today, but also think about where we are, where we could be in the future. We have financed freedom, sustained families, funded resistance, strengthened our democracy, sometimes with recognition, but often without. But against this backdrop, and particularly this backdrop of unprecedented political, social uncertainty, we feel like this conversation is poignant. And the question we are asking everyone, now will you listen to us? Grounded in our 5 T's of time, talent, treasure, ties, and testimony that Give Black Alliance sees as the pinnacle, the shaping of philanthropy. So today, we have five, again, dynamic women. First, we're going to be joined by Dinesha Dyer Young, a recent communication graduate with hands-on experience in media strategy, client engagement, and campaign development. An amazing student athlete, and I am so delighted you're here with us today.
Thank you, Bathaya. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to, you know, uh, figure out what's going on and how we can better help our community and overall, make a difference and make a statement.
And we're delighted that you could help us figure this out. And we need that. And we're going to be joined by next Charlotte Jones, founder and CEO of U2B, an award winning skincare brand rooted in wellness and sustainability and celebration of beauty in all traditions. And she's going to help us figure some of this out to you as well. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you so much, Bathaya. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of this conversation.
Thank you. And we now have the Reverend Christina Jones, from Spiritual Director of the Althea Center for Engaged Spirituality in Denver, whose work centers on spiritual leadership, personal transformation, and the elevation of the divine feminine.
Thank you. Thank you, Bathaya. It's wonderful to be here. I'm humbled. I feel blessed. And it's so beautiful to be with other beautiful, powerful, intelligent women, because the time is now. Thank you.
Wait, it is. It is. And we welcome Courtney Scruggs, a civic leader, community advocate who work is focused on empowering individuals, communities, and organizations to become more sustainable. How you doing, Courtney?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here and I'm grateful. In this room, I feel good. I feel safe. I feel hopeful. So delighted for the invitation and ready for the conversation.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we have almost saved the best for last. Miss Hustain Towers.
Indeed.
Indeed, indeed. She's
Thank
a
you.
community leader and advocate committed to strengthening civic engagement, fostering meaningful dialogue across community, and a historian. Thank you so much, Miss Hustain, for being here.
I'm delighted to be with this group of women, and I just feel so honored to have been selected and nominated by Eleanor to be a part of this group. So thank you. I can't wait to hear what these youngsters have to say.
Miss Hustain, I love you. This is the only place I feel like a youngster. So let's begin this conversation. And it's truly about us, for us. And, when I think about that, one of the things that I often think about, actually, my parents would say to me, mind who you are, because he that controls the image controls the mind. And when I think about that, I would like you to share, as we read this quote, what comes to you? Share with us, not just your bio, but what's the image of you? What would you like to share with us today? And I'm going to start with our historian, Miss Hussein.
Well, thank you. Well, when I think about the image of Black women, I think about all that we have done through the years. First of all, our role has been in the family. We have been the ones who have not only brought the next generation into the world and trained them, but we have been the force that held the family together. And we held that family together with a quality that's not often talked about, but that quality was love. And that quality is what sustained so many families through slavery, through the Jim Crow era, and in the 50s, the 40s and 50s after that, when we were migrating to the West and the North, the quality of faith is what has sustained us. And that is the image that we have held. We've held that vision throughout the decades of love, family first. And I think that that is the image that has made us so strong and that has sustained us.
I love that we're starting with love. And I'm glad that you reminded us that we come from a place of love because we don't often hear that. Miss Charlotte, what's the image you would like to share with us today? The image of you.
Um, I the thing that I would like to embody is the image of imagination. I think that um, we are all born from an imagination of who we could be and what we could be. And certainly when I think about my parents, who both were from Alabama, and I think about my generation, something that Miss Hussein said, which is so true, which is faith. And I would combine the realization of that faith and the faith combined with imagination of what was possible, as well as resilience. I would like to see that I was a worthy carrier of these dreams and these hopes. And yeah, and that I have the ability to push forward these values that are so important and the values that got us here.
Hmm. I think about those values that got us here, whether it is our parents, whether it's our aunties and people around us, but also the future inspiring us as well. So if you could share with us, Miss Donatia, what's that image of you that you would like to share with us today? What are you carrying and putting forth?
Um, well, Miss Houston and Miss Charlotte did have great points that I want to also build off of. And I resonate a lot with it, and I think a lot of young women like myself do resonate as well. What I imagine is like perseverance and resilience. Like Miss Charlotte did say, I do feel as though, at least for my generation, we do look to like the ones who led before us, and I think it's like the values that our parents, our mothers, our aunts, our grandparents utilize. It has been bestowed upon us, if it was intentionally or not. I do think we try to use what we've learned and or seen at growing up, and try to how do I explain it? Try to carry it on,
Mm,
especially like in a healthy manner.
yep.
I do feel as though, like Miss Hussein did say, our parent, well, my parent, my mom, my aunt, my grandmother,
Yeah.
um, they did carry, I wouldn't say a burden, but such a heavy weight. And I feel like, even in this day and age, Black women do carry, that weight as well. And I feel like we don't necessarily have space, which is why we're also
Mm,
here, but that space to kind of unload. We're already being perceived in the media, with other groups as well. So I do think, being able to, I don't know, the thought of just Black women just the idea of resilience and perseverance and being able to overcome obstacles is something that like I imagine, and I do believe that that's something that people my age are trying to continue to do, is to not break when we are faced with challenges. So I do believe that.
Well, I think you brought up some really good points, especially these breaking points, right? And we see in our community. And I really appreciate what you said about the past and trying to be that legacy and bringing it forward. And thinking about that, um, how do you, Miss Courtney, what is the image of you that you would like to share with us today?
Ooh, the image of me. When I think about your question, and I think about Black women, myself included, I think about this exercise I had to do once where there was an image projected on a screen, and it looked like a single thing. Like, let's just take this cup, right, it's on the screen, and you saw the cup up close. Maybe you only saw the A, and you couldn't tell what it was. You just saw the A, and then they started pulling back, and then you saw more. You said, "Oh, it's a cup," and then you kept pulling back, and you realized, "Oh, it's a painting of a cup." And then you pull back more and you realize it's a painting of a cup on a wall. And you just kept pulling back and pulling back. And the more you pulled back, the more textured and rich and complex and beautiful the image was. But you didn't realize what all you were looking at because you were steered to focus on just a small part. And that's what I think about when I think about Black women. We are so dynamic and complex. We have so many layers and so many facets, and in that way, so much to offer. But for a very long time, folks have been steered to see us in a very narrow way. And I think what's happening is the world is starting to be able to pull back and see how much more we are. And I think part of that is from our doing. We are forcing the world to see us from a different vantage point. And I know for me, I'm really pushing to force the world to see me from as many vantage points as I have to offer. So that's what I think about.
We all have this multifaceted way, right? We all come from the Creator. Blessed, beautiful, brilliant. And so I'm going to go to you, Reverend. When you think about this image, right? What's the image of you would like to share with us today?
Well, that's what I was thinking about even when Deshaun was speaking, and Courtney said it, multifaceted. We are diamonds. And yeah, we are all from one Creator. And it's like what Courtney said, people are almost being forced. Our society is being forced to pull back and really see us. Because I became a minister about 5 years ago, but I ran a restaurant. I used to flip homes. We're multifaceted. We're not just one thing. You cannot put me or any Black woman just in one box. And for me too, I think about ancestors I didn't meet, going all the way back, like to Africa, and the other DNA we are so blessed with. We know how to create. All our grandmothers knew how to create when there was the Depression. There were times where Black women couldn't go to school. They weren't allowed to do anything over 100 years ago, and they created businesses. My grandmothers created businesses, owned homes before 1934, before the Depression. So for me, I'm wearing all of that. And even now, when becoming a minister, some people try to put me in this box. It's like, I'm beyond that. And I'm a wife, and I know how to do estate planning. I know how to create websites. We're so many different things to see the totality of our intelligence, of our beauty, because society likes to put us in a box. And I'm determined to break that, to break that box, especially now. When I said earlier, when I was sad, not for me, but just what I see. I see a sadness in other people. And I am hopeful that as we're breaking through this ceiling that really was formed over 100 years ago, hundreds of years ago, to keep us in a box, I'm determined for all of us not to be in a box.
Mm.
Like Courtney's beyond being a lawyer. So many things we can all do. And I even chuckle at people worried about with AI losing their jobs. Well, I've lost my job in corporate America after 9/11, and I started selling stuff on Amazon before anybody else. A lot of other people were doing it. We are ingrained to be entrepreneurs, plural entrepreneurs, multifaceted. If we lose a job, we'll pick up and like, oh, I got this. I know how to do this now. So it's a great time. So that's the way I see my image in the world is like all of us. When I look at all Black women, because we know how to multitask sometimes too much, but we know how to get things done and be light, be brilliant like a diamond.
Mm. I agree. I think that when we think about our community, though, and I did this exercise with my child, and I think it's important for us to have these conversations with our youth because, as you were mentioning, Reverend, not only do we need to break through, but we got to break through to control our own image. And
Absolutely.
so, as we, right? So, as
Yeah.
you think about right now, and how others have control our image, and I'll give you one stat. When we think about, and this is our babies, or our uncles, our brothers, our sisters, these are our family. So we know how many Black people are in the United States. And when we think about how the media, how we are portrayed, I'm curious, and I'm going to ask this question. And if you have an answer, you can give it to me. But if not, it's okay. It's not a test. What percentage of Black people do you think are currently incarcerated?
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Throw out a number, somebody.
I think it's 60%.
Okay. Somebody else
It's
have another number?
Well, it depends on Black men or Black women. Yeah.
So,
Maybe in the United States,
mm-hmm.
In the United States. Okay.
3%, 2%.
I feel like it's not that high.
Okay.
I generally don't think it's that high.
I believe that it's 1.2%.
It's less than 2%.
Oh, okay.
So 98% of us, right? But think about that image that they're constantly portraying of us, as they constantly bring to our community, as they talk more about violence than education. So what is most urgent right now, you think, that we need to be talking about doing as a community? What do you think is most urgent that we need to undo?
I just celebrate something that we've kind of covered in this conversation so far, which is, we have always known and understood our brilliance. We've always known and understood the role of creativity in our life because we grew up with it. No matter your generation, we've inherited this incredible legacy and heritage of imagination and creativity that is just astonishing. It's astonishing. So the issue isn't whether or not it exists and whether or not that is true. The issue is about what you're bringing, this question I think that you're bringing, Pathia, which is who controls the narrative? And it has always been about who controls the narrative, because I love that we're living in a moment in time where our stories and our realities and our impacts on technology, medicine, art, you name it, throughout history, they're starting to come. And now we're also, thanks to, I think, a lot of contemporary art, we're connecting those heritage back to the continent of Africa. We're connecting through our chefs, through our culinary creativity, our impact on food, and actual, where that's getting connected back to Africa as well. So I think that this is a great conversation and lane for us to explore, because each of us, we are coming from different generations, and those generations challenged us in unique ways. And I love to see the generations that are behind me that talk about and think about this challenge and how they perceive it. So it's not that I have a direct answer to that, but I think the good news is that we've landed on a place of truth and reckoning, which is we must figure out and strategize around controlling the narrative, because that is the seed of our problems. It's the seed of so many issues that we are troubled by, and so many stumbling blocks that get put in our way unnecessarily.
Sorry.
No,
Well, it's almost like I was going to say, I love what you said, Charlotte. It's like the unhidden figures.
Yes.
And it's like
we live with them. We live with them.
Until that movie came out and I read the book before the movie, I was picked on for being a nerd. I used to be an engineer. I was picked on for liking math and loving science. Oh, I'm the biggest nerd, tech magazines, all that stuff, and picked on. And many of us are so intelligent, and we're from that DNA. And it's finding out that Frederick Jones invented the air conditioner. All these inventions are starting to come out.
Absolutely.
Because when you answer that incarceration, I heard the world. That's what I heard, because the way they portray the world of not only America, of Black people, it almost feels like half of us are like pushed aside. You know what I mean? But we're in that. But Charlotte, I love that you said that. There's so many inventions when you start going down that rabbit hole, and I think we need to pull that out, not just in February, which is the shortest month of the year. For Black History Month, it needs to come out all the time on our social media posts. If we find someone, Madam C.J. Walker, I'm in Denver, there's all that stuff. I sometimes just post up on my social media like, oh, look at this cute little fact find about Black women. Just put it out there, not just because it's Black History Month all the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
We embody, and I think particularly Black bodies embody. This is not a word to take lightly. We embody this history. We embody the history of this country in a way that nobody else does. That is
right.
real. That is real. And then it's the thing that it is the thing that is so powerful and painful at the same time.
Yes.
And speaking of that pain, we have another quote, and Charlotte, that kind of hit me in a way. Zora Neale Hurston had a quote.
Yes.
If you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it.
That's right.
And this is personal to me. Whether it's how do we show up? We have all these gifts. You all have talked about our strength, our beauty, our brains. But what have we been too silent about? And what do we need to start shouting more about? Courtney, I saw you fix your hair a little bit early and lean in. So I know you got something to say here. But
listen,
right?
I have something to say about all of this. And so I'm trying to be mindful. But I think that quote is such a powerful one. And I think about it all the time when I am having an experience and I feel the nudge to speak up and share about it and advocate for myself. And I think, I don't want to be perceived as angry and this and that. So and then I have to remind myself that quote, hey, you have a responsibility to say it and to be thoughtful and strategic in the way you do, but to say the thing, because if you don't, the record is not clear. You will not be on the record. That's my lawyer talking, right? You have to inform the record. And so I think as Black women, we have to remind ourselves that the record is being created every day. And we can't look back and say, oh, wow, this man, Black or white, was given credit for that. And we learned that it was a group of Black women or a group of women behind them doing all the work. And it's a shame that the books are not reflecting what those Black women did. And then we sat in organizations and let the same record recreate.
That's
Right.
right.
We stand back and let the same thing happen, and we're doing the work in the background, letting someone else stand up and appear to be the one who's making it all happen. So I think that what that quote means for me at this stage of my life is step up to the front
Yes.
and let the record reflect your
Mm.
contribution and what you put into it. I think for generations, Black women have been asked to do the work. And now it is time for us to also step up, make the decisions, and let folks know we're the infrastructure. We're not just
That's
the
right.
labor.
That's
We're the
right.
Right.
strategy, we're the blueprint, we're the infrastructure, and we're the decision makers, or we can be if we want to be. So that's what I think about with it.
But Miss Houston, I gotta go to you as our historian.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, here.
I can't wait. I can't wait. When I think about this topic, what I see that we didn't control the media back in the
Right.
40s and 50s. We
Nope.
were not portrayed in the media in the 40s
Right.
and 50s. Barely in the 50s and 60s
Right.
were we portrayed. In the 60s is when I saw us on television for the first time, and in very, very troubling situations for the most part, because all of our trials, all of our hurts were being publicized, and not so much our victories. But right now, I have seen since the 50s and 60s and civil rights, I have seen there is a great change in media. There's a great change in that every single one of us has access to media and controlling our image through social media. It is powerful. It is more powerful than anything that I have ever seen us have. And, yes, I appreciate Oprah having her, broadcasting station. I appreciate all the others. But I see that the most important and valuable electronic media that we have is our social media. And luckily, the younger generations are using that. And I hope that we see more generations using that to get the story out about our inventors whose inventions were stolen from them, even if they had patents. And believe me, folks, we are an inventive nation of Black folk. We invent out of necessity. And we did that. If you look at everything we have invented, it is necessary. And it is still being used in a very necessary and very primal way by all of America and maybe all of the world. In the case of air conditioning and HVAC and actually our phones.
Absolutely.
Our phones, our little mini computers that we carry around, that was invented by a Black woman whose name escapes me now. Maybe one of you remember it. I don't. But I remember what she did.
Yes.
I remember what she did because I am connected to it vitally. And I think that, if I have a soapbox to get on, it is about this social media opportunity that we have.
I appreciate that because Denisha, we got to bring you in. You're the communication major, right? And you're this generation that Miss Houston is talking about. I, so, what have you not heard enough of? What have we been too silent about, you think, for your generation?
Well, with my generation, I do feel as though, going off of what everyone said, I do feel as though we are, speaking out against certain things, especially that we see in the media, even if it comes down to movies, role playing, or even things that we just see in general with certain influencers or certain events that's happening. I do find my generation is very vocal
Mm.
in that aspect. In terms of us like moving forward, it goes to what Courtney actually said, when it comes down to taking a step back and seeing the complexity of us. I do feel as though my generation for my generation, we put ourselves kind of in a box a little bit. We're vocal, but yet still we're confining ourselves to certain, like, I guess, positions, like how we're supposed to operate a little bit.
Mhm.
And that's something I am hopeful that we can branch out of. Because in retrospect, we do absorb the media the most. So if we're always seeing certain things, I think we're susceptible to falling into those categories. But
Yeah.
ironically, we're still able to vocalize it. So I think just finding that balance, if that makes sense. So
It makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And I like the fact that you named our gifts, right? We have strength, we have beauty, we have brilliance that is being named here. And through that, that's one of the reasons that we want to reshape how we see ourselves, our wealth, how we see using the brilliance around us. I was talking to Eleanor about this, and Eleanor said, some people are so poor that all they have is their money.
Yep.
Mhm.
I thought about that, and I thought
Mhm.
money is not the only thing of philanthropy. So as
No.
we think about philanthropy, especially Black philanthropy, because we're different, right? We've named all the things. What should we be thinking about how we're using our time, talent, treasure, ties, and testimony differently? And so if we think of it as those things, right, and see ourselves, we're going to change up our image. We're going to now see ourselves as wealthy people.
Yeah.
Wealthy people, because it's not
Yep.
about the money. Because money is just a conduit, right? Just a vehicle.
Yeah.
So for our community, what do you think, Courtney, is the best use of our time right now? You sit on boards, you're in a big community in New Orleans, you see a lot of things. What would you say is the best use of our time right now?
I think it's investing in ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I don't mean just us as individual. I mean us as Black women. I think we're the key to everything, to be honest. I believe Black women is the answer to all the problems in the world, if you ask me. and
All
it's
right.
because I believe it 100%. And and if you gave me a TED Talk stage, I can deliver a presentation on it and make everybody a believer, I think. But it's because we have seen things from the bottom in so many different ways. And our hearts have been broken in so many different ways. And that allows us to connect with the plight and the struggle of so many different types of people in so many different stations of life around the world. But then we just have this brilliance and ingenuity and creativity and passion that also comes from having to sit back sometimes, or having to do the work, or make a lot out of a little. We've been trained over centuries. Okay. And so at this moment, now we bring all of that perspective and all of that skill to the fore. It makes us the answer to every question and the solution to every problem. But what I would say, as far as philanthropy is concerned, the best use of our time, talent, our treasure, Danisha said something important. And this is what I took from it. She mentioned how important it is to see yourself a particular way, because if you're in an environment, if you're looking at a media that's portraying you in a picture, in a certain view, you can internalize that. And oftentimes we reflect back what someone has put in us or shown us. And I believe we have a responsibility as Black women to reflect to each other the best of us. And what I mean by that is to say, when Danisha spends time with me, she should feel the most inspired. She should feel the most empowered. I should be reflecting to her the fullness of her capability, the fullness of her gift. I should be saying to her all the things she can be. In the community of other Black women, she should feel like she can do anything. And that is what makes her walk out into the rest of the world and believe it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so I think if we're going to use our time, talent, and treasure, this is the most fertile ground to invest in right here.
Right.
Invested in this fertile ground, because we never hide our gift. Never. Black women are most philanthropic people in all of the world.
That's
Whatever
right.
you invest in us, the whole
right.
world will benefit from, because
That's
we
right.
give. We give, right? So if that old fable or principle is true, that you put your seeds into the most fertile ground to reap the biggest
That's
harvest,
right.
this is it.
That's right.
This is it. That's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. I was just going to say, you know, to tie into what you're saying, which is just so powerful and so true. You know, I am a late boomer. You know, I came about in a generation where is that sort of a hyper attention to accumulation. And you know, we live, this is, you know, hyper individualism and wealth culture. And we you know, this, but what happened during that period of time, there's a quiet persistence in our community and a network of care, and a network that was there, and it was us. It was Black women, because we were never invited into the greed is good boardrooms. We weren't there yet. You know, we weren't, those are not places that we had. So, you know, this idea of, and it has to do with the fact that we were raised in communities where giving, the ways of giving weren't just about money. They were about, you know, money can fund a movement, but it's trust and it's relationship and it's respect that really sustain those relationships and give them the nutrients that they need and for our community to grow. And that's what and it has to do with like who you are. How do you show up in the world? How do you your role beyond this narrow lens that is so elevated in today's culture, which is, you know, centers around money.
Yeah,
It does.
I would like to add or build off of what Courtney and Miss Charlotte said as well. I
Please
think it's important to redefine what being a philanthropist is, or just philanthropy in general, like Miss Charlotte said. I do, like Miss Charlotte said, I think there is a connotation regarding like wealth, some type of you know, trust in that aspect, like anything monetary. Because typically when people think of philanthropy, they don't think of the time that you talk about, or anything a little bit more in depth. So I think redefining the meaning of philanthropy for us as a community, and then being able to, like Ms. Charlotte said, give more to our community, especially because we know that we're complex, we're different, we're unique, there's a lot of things that we can't even define ourselves based off of how complex we are, right? We have more to us, and I think being able to see that, then we will be able to move forward and even tackle other political and societal issues that kind of keeps us as a community down, not just as Black women, but just as a Black community in of itself. And I do think it can't, I think Courtney said this as well, or maybe Christina, Black women are resilient to the point that we carry a lot of weight. And I do think, yes, we can continue to push, but it can't always be on us. So if we're able to tackle certain avenues, then we're able to come together as a community. Because I do think other factors that do play a part, and maybe that's for another conversation, but I do think the other factors are also preventing us from flourishing as a community. And it goes into the how even like something as not small but simple as the media what's it called, perceiving us, and then it coming back into us. So I think we just need to navigate the flow of things so that we can move forward. But that was it.
You know, I think I there were a couple of things that Donisha said that I wanted to latch on to and build upon. Number one is redefining philanthropy.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
again, I say it often, Black people are some of the most philanthropic people
Yes.
in the world.
Yes.
And it's because we invest so much of ourselves in all of the things we have to offer into our communities and to other people. And we also give the largest share of our money
Yes.
into community and organizations.
That's right.
So if you just looked at philanthropy in a
That's
narrow box of money, we are still the most philanthropic, philanthropic out there. But I want to tell a quick little story about an experience I had last year that illustrates this point. So a good friend of mine asked me out in New Orleans, asked me to be a part of the Women of Impact campaign for the American Heart Association. And I said, okay, sure, that's fine. 9 weeks fundraising impact. I said, okay, I'll do it. And then it was intended, and I realized that it was more than fundraising. It was really about making an impact and who could make the biggest impact in a very short window of time. And so I raised money. I ended up winning the competition, but it wasn't only because of the money. I think I raised about $35,000 in that 9 weeks, but 20,000 of it was earmarked for an initiative at Ashe Cultural Arts Center. Christine, you may know it. It's out in over near the Lower Garden in Central City. It's a Black cultural arts center in New Orleans to put AEDs, blood pressure machines, different education in that center, so that when folks are passing through and see Ashe as a safe place, because it's our place, the healthcare and the screening is there in their safe place, right? Now, somebody else in a corporation could have just wrote a check and gave the check over. And I ended up writing a check, giving money. But what really amplified the impact and made that money philanthropic truly is the strategy,
Right.
the knowledge of the people, the knowledge of the culture bearers and the places to put them.
That's right.
Right. The influence, the ability to cultivate relationships and trust. It was all this other stuff that came with the table that made the money do the work.
Absolutely.
And that, to me, is the broader view of philanthropic, right? If you're being philanthropic. And that's absolutely what Black people bring, and Black women in particular bring. When you put some money into their hand, that's all the multiplication that's going on top of it to make an impact. So I wanted to build that in.
But I think that's important.
Exactly. I was just going to.
But I'm gonna break in here one moment, because that's the social capital, right?
Right.
That's the ties and the testimony part of philanthropy. And how did you see that, Miss Eustace, show up again and again in history?
I'm sorry.
How did you see that power of personal ties, personal, social capital show up in our community? And do you see it still showing up in the same way?
Okay, how I saw it showing up in my era. I went to segregated schools, and we had Black teachers. School was just an extension of home. All of the traditions, all of the love, all of the nurturance that Black women carry was expressed in our school system. We were nourished at home with love, with traditions, with morals, with ethics, and we were also told that we could do anything we wanted to do. And that was very, very powerful. I see that as philanthropic. I see that as how we give. It's how Black women have given from the time we were back in slavery to the time that we were in segregation. And now that we are out of the segregation era, which is a very strange place to be, because it has such pain and such division involved in it. Yeah. I see history, looking at history, I see as very powerful. I see if Black women connect themselves to history, that is so powerful. If you see who you were and who you really are, you are the carriers of the traditions. We contribute to the philanthropy of our race in that way.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm very conscious of is money, because it reflects so much about what we're thinking and how we're behaving as a result of how we're thinking. So I see how money moves through different communities. Part of my training was economics when I was in training, when I was receiving my education. I see that through the white race, that money stays in the hands of the consumer before they spend it approximately a year or more. In the Black race, our money stays in our hands before we move it out and spend it on something about 6 days. So I am reminded about our generational wealth and how that was stolen from us. I think that one of the most powerful things the coming generations can do is teach the current generation how to create wealth, how to save, how to participate in the stock market, how not to spend all your money on goods and beautiful things to have, which are only things, but how to create wealth. That is something we are missing, and something I think that we can add to our generation and to our philanthropy is how do we create wealth, generational wealth? How do we buy insurance policies? And everybody should have an insurance policy. I'm not in the insurance business at all.
We're not selling it today.
That's okay.
That is one way that everybody can obtain, almost everybody can obtain opportunity to participate in general health and generational health.
Generational wealth, yes.
That's very, very important, because it is about controlling your image, controlling how you use your wealth, controlling how you use your philanthropy, and how you use your money. There's plenty of money in the universe, but if you spend it 6 days after you receive it, I don't think you're on the path to generational wealth.
I think
if you don't mind,
couldn't have been said any better. And Denisha, I know you have something to share.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. So, Ms. Hussein was talking about, or mentioned, like the younger generation. One thing I've noticed is, it's unfortunate, but I don't think my generation is at that point yet. And I only say that only because, like I said earlier, how the media portrays things influences how we perceive ourselves, right? So with that being said, especially with influencers and celebrities and stuff like that, I think my generation is susceptible to try and attain things that are a little bit far out in reach, if that's so. I think for us, we spend money on things that are materialistic, I believe, and stuff that generally won't last. So those conversations that Miss Houston was talking about when it comes to insurance and wealth and not spending on certain things, I do feel as though that's a conversation that definitely needs to be had and taught to my generation, so that we can at least move it so, when we start to have kids and future upcoming generations. But I do think that is something that my generation doesn't necessarily have, and I don't know if it's more so, how do I put it? Yeah, I don't know if it's more so if it's like older, like previous generations. This is not, again, this is not something that is necessarily taught to our community. And I feel like it's something that was purposefully withheld. So then now it's teaching what we may know and then passing it down, and or may not know. So I think, at least for us, that's not something that, at least personally, I've received. So yeah.
Well, we're going to say yet. And
Yeah,
Christina,
we're
Yes.
gonna say yeah.
we're going to say
Well,
yet.
yeah. So Courtney, give New Orleans a hug for me. Spain, I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, and Deshaun, that was great. Philanthropy. I remember when I first heard that word in my 20s, and it was always shown as white men. You know, whenever we saw it on the media, yeah, the picture was them being a philanthropist. My grandmother, who was born in the late 1800s, with less than a sixth grade education, became a multimillionaire. I am on my 8th house, and I'm in my 50s. Me and my mother were homeless. I was working at 14. I got 3 degrees and put myself through it. We are all philanthropists. Right now, I focus. I have a 29-year-old that lives in my house that's not related to me. My main focus is Black women saving money, because her mother, my best friend, is broke at 55, and all her aunts. She moved in with me and our husband. I said, you got to stop this cycle. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was in my 20s going to college. Changed my, I started reading and my grandmother took me to estate sales, and I started flipping homes because she was doing it. And then my dad started doing it. And in New Orleans too, because there's a different energy. Courtney, you feel it down there. It's a different energy, I would say, of Black excellence. And Justine is totally right about that. We're all philanthropists, and that the money component, we give so much, we got to learn to also receive and hold a little bit of it. You know what I mean? You know what? Because I took care of my mother. My mother was broke. My aunt, whole bunch of people. I got my sister with some issues. I love my girl, but it's like, girl, and we weren't taught that. It really isn't our fault. We weren't taught to save. Most of people, me and my cousin are the first people to go to college. And I was born in 1970. That, if you think about it, it's pretty bad, because they couldn't go, they didn't have the money. So philanthropy to me is, I'm wanting to help the 29-year-old, the 30-year-olds of saying, or even 40-year-old women, please save your money. Don't get with some dude. Get a prenup. I don't care if you got one house, because Courtney have a prenup if you're not married yet, because we weren't taught that. White women, and I have many white girlfriends, but they were taught to save money. They got endowments. They got money. Our Black culture didn't get anything because it really was taken. They weren't allowed to go to college, but they were allowed to go to war.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, my dad could not go to college. He wanted to go to Dillard University, didn't have the money, but they were fine with him going to Korea and Vietnam. I know I'm preaching. And another part of philanthropy is that prayer and meditation, having faith.
Right.
Yeah, truly having faith. Because now with internet, Deshaun, you able to go to college. All my nieces, my nephew knows 5 different languages, about to go to Japan. He's brilliant. So in a short amount of time, this is the good news. Look at you.
Look at us.
Yeah, look at us. Look, I mean, we can do podcasts. We can reach out. Where Charlie could start a business, and we could connect with our historians. And please listen to that, because that philanthropy works so many ways of giving people faith. It doesn't have to just be money. It's also giving people faith and hope and wisdom to create a new business, even if you work in corporate. Having a backup plan and all that. And I've been a prosperity coach for 9 years. So we don't let that money go in 6 days, because we didn't have it.
No, we didn't.
Yeah. And that's
We
why we
didn't.
see black basketball players.
Right.
My husband used to play football. Football players, they weren't told they'd
Yeah.
go get a Bentley, a plane, and all that, and
Right.
then they didn't pay their taxes. So that's
We,
us, and especially black women. We
well,
know,
you've
we
said
know how to do
so
it.
much.
Mhm.
Yeah. Co-
Yeah, I'm complete.
You know,
I'm keep going. You know, I'm a
But
minister.
I think it's not only listening, will they listen to us, but we're listening to each other. We're
Yeah.
listening to that next generation. We're listening to our historians. We got to sit in more of these kind of spaces that we
Yes.
can hear each other and be inspired by each other. Because I know I'm feeling inspired and I'm thinking differently about the future. And so quickly, I'm going to ask each and every one of you, and I'm going to start with Ms. Hustain. Like when you think about the future, let's say even 2076, 50 years from now, right? What do you see as Black women power? How do you see it? You talked about the pendulum swinging. How's that pendulum going to swing in the future?
I see that pendulum swinging out, and I see Black women taking their place. I look at Michelle Obama, and I look at our former vice president, and I see that they embodied everything. Those two women embody everything that we are. They are us. We are them. And I see that the world will know who they are. The world has already glimpsed those two Black women. And once you open that door, and take the blinders off, you begin to see truly. And, I believe it all began with Hidden Figures back in 2016 and recognizing that it was Black women who put us on the moon.
Mm.
It wasn't Neil Armstrong.
Mm.
It wasn't anybody else. It was Katherine Johnson and her colleagues that were shown in that movie. But it also goes back to they were part of the first women to ever receive degrees and get into schools and get a PhD. They were the first ones. And what did they go for? They went for a math degree. Black women went for what is considered by the world as a masculine era. And and we dominated mathematics. We dominate mathematics. We dominate science. We dominate creativity in the scientific area. And I think that we will be seen that I'm a historian. I'm uncovering facts about Black women every day. I know that when we had the exodus from the South back in the turn of the centuries, that it was Black women homesteaders that accompanied their husbands and their families. There were also Black women that came individually and homesteaded. They had an understanding and a knowledge of the land, of the family, and they understood subsistence. They understood subsistence and that you could take a small plot of land and you could not only raise your family, feed your family, but you could also develop wealth and help your neighbors. And I came from an era where neighbors taught the next generation. I was taught not by just my mother. I was taught by a generation of Black women who told me about all kinds of things, how to cook our food, what herbs were valuable for this, what herbs were valuable for that, how to raise children, how to save a child when the doctors had given up on them. I have seen all that and taught all that. All of my generation was taught those things. And you may know some of those things that your grandmothers say. You may consider them old fogeyisms, but they often are coming from our spiritual values and our cultural values. So, and I'm really sorry, Donisha. I am really sorry for your generation. I don't believe you've received the fullness of what your Black forebears have to offer. And I believe that is because you were cut off from that richness because of desegregation.
Yeah.
And it's a fact.
Yeah.
And so many of us don't recognize it, but it is a true fact. And I think we have to rebuild that bond between the generations so that the cultural traditions can be passed down and enriched. They're part of that enrichment. They're part of that value. It's not just money. It's the other things that are far more valuable. We leave our money, but we can pass on our legacy of traditions and knowledge.
I thank you so much for that, because to your point, that pendulum may have been low, but we're going to swing this forward, and we're going to grab all the Denishas, and we're going to grab me and all the rest of us together to do this. So, Charlotte, quickly, when you think about 2076, what do you see as Black women power?
Well, it's something that touches on a lot of what we've said. History records the loudest voice and the bigger figures. But the real, I believe, as a small entrepreneur, business, I've seen this in my other world where working with bigger companies. I believe in the power of small. I believe in the power of small is what really moves things. And when you look back on the movements that we've all benefited from, it's these hidden figures. It is these women and their feet, their effort, their hands, their food. It is their strengthening the ties between each other and towards a very focused goal that actually made the network and society more resilient. So I think that each of us are contributing to creating a bigger imagination about what a Black woman and who we are, what we are, and how we move through the world, and our importance, not just now, but throughout history. And I think that we are, each of us, in our various ways. It is really about showing up. It's not enough. The money is just one wing of the plane. The other wing of the plane is participation. It is about what you do. So it's why when I'm asked to participate or do things, my answer, I start with yes. I know we're supposed to start with no because we're laden with lots of, responsibilities and taking care of families and all of that. But because of the way that I was raised and in my generation, I feel the obligation to say yes, and I do whatever I can to participate. And so I want them to see that there were women who responded in particularly in times of uncertainty with strength within themselves that was connected to something in history, and that they pushed forward and showed up and made power durable.
And I see that intentionality, even in the name of your company, U2B.
Yes.
Right?
You take care of your skin, because your skin, I don't want to get into it. We can't go
We'll
there.
talk about that more.
Yeah, that's another point.
episode.
But yes,
I want to hear about her
U2B. You're taking care of the skin that is in your future. That's right.
So I'm going to quickly ask you, Reverend Christina, when you think about the future of Black women, the power of us, 1 or 2 sentences. 2076.
Well, you know what? I'm going to bring it, if you don't mind, to 2036. Okay. I'm making a prophecy here, a prediction. I don't know what you want to call it. We're going to have a Black female president.
Yes,
all right.
We are at the end of some old energy, ancestral energy, old stuff around the globe. You see, there's more female leaders around the world. By 2076, it's going to be a totally different world. Every 5,000 years, there's this wave. There was one time ISIS and all the Black women were in power. And then it went away, and then all this other stuff came up. We're in a new age. Totally. So that's why we're going through the birth canal now. We do see the sadness and the frustration. That's all normal. And I have moments of hope. And then moments of what's going on. But you know what? We being tested and spirits got us. But by 2036 or whatever, I really feel we're going to have a female Black president because we're this close.
All right.
This close. And more corporations led by women. We're seeing it. We're coming out like that Diana Ross song. We're coming out, and it is our time to stand up in that. So
I appreciate it. So it's 2036. We're gonna see that. You heard
we
the
go
prediction.
see that. Yeah.
We all heard it. Courtney, can you give us a sentence or two before we close with donation?
Yeah, I'm gonna say two things. I think when we talk about a black female, black woman president, we think about, we need to think about how you get there, and that's through civic engagement and voting. Right. And what blocks us is not because we haven't had a capable candidate. Before VP Harris, we had one. Okay.
That's right.
But we didn't get them in because we needed the votes. And a lot of that is about the narrative and the picture that others have of us that blocks them from believing that we're capable of doing and leading in a way that's beneficial for them, just like it's beneficial for us, right? They don't see us as philanthropic in the way in which we really are. And that when we lead, we care for everybody. We take care of everybody, not just ourselves, right? And so a part of the way I think we change that narrative is not by just focusing on who's in office. It's about leading in wherever we are and showing the world the fullness of what we have to offer. That's how we change the narrative. Every community, block, organization, when you show up compassionate but assertive, willing to do the work but strategic. When you show up with all the different facets, the work is to see that Black women are all these things. And then when it's time to vote, they don't even think, it's like, man, it needs to be a Black woman, because the Black woman I know can do all the things. You know what I mean? So we all have a responsibility for the good of the world to show up in all of our wonderful facets. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, in 2076, because I know that's what you asked, Bethia, is what's the vision for 2076? I see three main pillars. One is Black women own things. We're not asking as much anymore. We have the money, we have the capital, we're at the decision-making table, we're the chair of the board, we are the presidents and the CEOs. We have the things and we're making the decisions. Number two, we're building the infrastructure, right? We're not just serving in the infrastructure, we're building the house, we're building the endowments, we're building the organizations, we're building the leadership pipelines, we're cultivating the pipelines. So we are the infrastructure. And the last thing is what I mentioned at the top is we are the narrative control at that point, right? We are actually making sure that the future generations know that Black women built the systems. We're not just building the systems, we're making sure that the generations know that we built the system. So it's not even a thought, right? This is just who we are and what we do. That's what I see for 2076.
Thank you, Miss Courtney. And I love that. It's like we're in charge. Because we're already in charge. We're already in charge. We just stop dimming ourselves. And I'm gonna go to our bright star, Denisha. So by that time you'll be like us.
I hope I look as good as you guys. So hey. But no, to add on to Courtney said a lot of great things. I don't know if you guys saw me. I was shaking my head like, yes, yes. I do feel as though as Black women, we've talked about who we are, like what philanthropy or like our own images are in the beginning. And I do feel as though there's a fear of our resilience and of our power. And I think not that we fear our power, but more so because other people fear our power, we are susceptible to fear it and internalize it as well. And I think that's what holds us back. And I do think by 2076 or even by 2036, as Christine said, once we've seen our power through generations, we recognize it. But I think, like Courtney said, it's time to own it. And I think once we start to own it and be bold and there's phrases like black girl magic and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like it's there. It's just now time to stand on it and stand in it and break through barriers as we've done and generations before us has done before. And I do think it will open, excuse me, multiple opportunities for future generations to come and to just show the world, to be honest, how much they need us. I'm not gonna lie. They definitely they need us. They need us.
Clock it. Clock it.
That's
I feel as though there's nothing that we can't do, and everyone knows that. We know it, but to be honest, I think until we see some, like, one of us do it, that's what motivates us to say, like, you know what can't I do? All right, cool. Let me try this. And ironically, when we try things that are, maybe we're not used to, we find out that we're more than capable. And I think that is something that this country has put into our brains, that we're not capable and that we're not able to produce something that is way beyond this world. So
Yeah, that's right.
I'm
You are
so
good.
happy you reminded us to break through our own fear.
yeah.
Yes.
Break through our own fear. And
Mhm.
I am just, this conversation could go on for a few days. We have to find a way to have us together, like around a table for real,
That's
because
true.
I just think listening to us, listening to what was said here was so powerful and uplifting. I just want to thank each and every one of you,
Oh,
Denisha, for reminding us we have nothing to fear but ourselves. We are so
Mhm.
capable. And Courtney, we can lead from our seat. And each one
Mhm.
of us have an obligation to lead from our seat.
Obligation.
An obligation. And Christina, thank you for telling us in 2036 we're gonna have a black woman president. So we better go out there. I don't know even if it's Denisha,
She better be
right?
a
We're
good
gonna
black
have
woman.
that's the prediction. And for Charlotte, remind even through your company, we're here. The you to be is here. We're embodied in our beautiful black skin, our beautiful blackness as women. We are here to be. And Miss Hussein, what can I say? Not only as our historian, not only as our mother, not only as reminding us the pendulum swings.
Yeah.
And we're going to swing back harder and faster and smarter, and reminding us that our community was good
yeah.
when we were even by ourselves. Our community was enough. We
Mm.
need to find that space again, that we know we're enough and not looking for outsiders to tell us. And that's why we're so happy and just blessed to be with you, because you reminded me, and I'm sure everyone here, we're
Yeah.
enough.
Yes.
We have it in us. So thank you so, so, so much. I think I didn't even know why I chose this quote. And Sean, if you could bring it up, because I feel like this conversation embodied the words of Harriet Tubman. You know, always remember, always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars and to change the world. I think that's what each and every one of you have told us today. And I
Yeah.
just want to say thank you. You lifted my heart. You lifted my soul. I hope you lifted each other up. We're going to find a time to come together again.
Yeah.
So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm.
And to our audience, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we have. We fellowship, we sisterhood, we've had it all here today. And I hope that it invites you to move from thinking about where you are or even in this space, but just being uplifted and understanding our own personal responsibility. And it's your turn to participate in the 5 T's, what we call the ocula, like that window into our community. Offer your talent to someone and your community. Commit your time to our community. Use your testimony and say it loud in rooms like Courtney reminded us. Leverage your ties so that the next generation, not only just Denisha, but all of us, can inherit more of us and invest our treasure. And our treasure is just a little bit, but it also brings together where we can move mountain. So let us build well. Let us boldly, take care of our community. And I hope you can join us at our next Black Tea. It's supported and powered by Give Black Alliance. We are here with you to inform, reform, and transform our community to focus on our many, many, many talents and assets. If you want to join our show, please go to our website at giveblackall.org. Drop us a note at Inform and share your words with us.